1. Many years ago, I worked at a company that did phone tech support for a particular piece of well-known business software. After outgrowing the building we'd been in, the company moved to an enormous warehouse building they'd renovated into offices and cube space. The new building had separate parking areas for visitors, of which we basically had none, and employees who had to park in the rear. As part of the move, we got a new security crew, who had very specific ideas about access security. First, the entrances were keyed so that you had to badge in, use your ID to unlock the door. This included the visitor's entrance. Reception had to unlock the door for visitors. Second, all doors except the front guest entrance and the rear employee's entrance were switched to exits only, and didn't have a badge reader to unlock the door from the outside. Third, they forbade anyone from permitting drafting, aka allowing someone else to enter behind you, so that you had to badge in to enter. Several people got write-ups for allowing people to come in after them, just to make that point. Fourth, and the reason for the story, you had to badge out to prime your badge so that you could badge in. For fire safety, you could exit by any door without badging out, but if you did, you couldn't unlock a door to re-enter, and had to walk around the visitor's entrance to have reception let you in. Because the front and rear entrances were around 500 meters from each other, it was easy to have to waste 10 minutes getting back in the building, if you forgot to badge out, and 40°C 100 Fahrenheit weather for much of the summer. The explanation we were given was that they needed to know how many people were in the building in case it had to be evacuated. Of course, that information was on computers that were only accessible inside the building, so... After the first couple of days, during which I and nearly everyone I knew had locked themselves out at least once, I realized what I had to do. Starting on day 3, I'd enter the building and immediately after getting through the doors, smack my badge against the exit reader to prime it for me to re-enter. Every time a coworker saw me entering the building, they'd ask me what I was doing, which I'd happily explain. Within a couple of weeks, I didn't see a single person coming through the doors who didn't swing around and smack their badge against the exit reader. And at the beginning of the next month, security sent out an email saying that they were no longer requiring exit badging. I like to believe it was my doing, although it's also possible that reception was sick and tired of dealing with having to deal with the lunch return rush, and constantly letting the smokers back into the building. Never mess with reception. 2. For the last 3 years, I have worked as a muralist for a mural company. It's hard work, but also rewarding, as I was beautifying public spaces. I had a good boss. He was a skilled painter who worked alongside us on big projects, in addition to providing us with plenty of financial incentives and encouragements. Unfortunately, he retired last year and gave full control of the company to his business partner. It immediately became a shit show. The business partner controlled the administration side of the company. He was not a painter and didn't understand the work it took. He would overbook clients and overpromise on completion dates. He never offered us incentives and would only berate us for not getting jobs done quick enough. We tried to tell him that the old boss has always encouraged us to take our time and deliver the best mural, as the company's reputation rested on the quality of our work. We also tried to explain that as artists, we want to be proud of the work that we put out there. He brushed it off with, "You're paid to finish jobs. Just get it done." This was incredibly demoralizing, and after 2 months of churning out rushed work, we were burned out. One of our 4 muralists quit. The final straw came 3 months later. Our company won a huge bid to paint the side of a 5-story tall building using my design. I told the boss that it would take us 5 weeks to complete. However, a week before the project was due to start, he told us that we had 3 weeks. We protested, citing that we were down 1 muralist, safety issues, weather changes, and the complexity of the design. He, of course, told us that the contract had been signed and brushed off our concerns. He did, however, offer us financial incentives for overtime work this time, and knowing that there was nothing we could do, we accepted it. I simplified the design, and we planned to stay late. The weather got bad, as predicted. There were a few days of rain where we barely got work done. We fell behind and told the boss that he had to get us an extension. Our client was nice enough to grant another week, but our boss was pissed. He would show up to the job site regularly just to rush us. On the third week, we were working when a light drizzle started. We were waiting in our cars, hoping it would pass when the boss showed up. The moment he saw us, he started accusing us of being lazy. To quote, "This is why we're falling behind," one of my coworkers said through gritty teeth. "Can't you see it's raining?" But before we could explain why we couldn't paint in the rain, the boss yelled, "If you're scared of a little drizzle, you shouldn't be a muralist. Get back to work." My coworker shot me a look, and I knew immediately the malicious compliance was on. The three of us got back on the scaffolding and began working. The boss smugly said, "See, that wasn't so hard," and drove off. We kept our smiles to ourselves. When the boss returned that afternoon, he was horrified. The rain had washed the wet paint down the building, leaving paint streaks dripping onto the rest of the mural. Basically, the whole mural. 3 weeks' worth of work was ruined. We noticed him staring slack-jawed, but we just kept painting. Then he called us down and cursed us out with all sorts of profanity. When asked, "What the fuck were you guys thinking?" my coworker replied, "Well, you were the one who told us to do it." My boss's face turned beet red. Then he asked, "Well, how the hell are we gonna fix this?" My coworker simply replied, "You mean how are you going to fix it? We've decided to all quit." And indeed we had while we were working in that rain. We packed up our tools as the boss went from yelling to begging to yelling again. We just ignored him. That was the last day that we were on site. I felt so relieved the moment I got home. The aftermath. I got a call a week later from my old boss. I was ready to tell him that I won't come back to work, but it turned out that he just wanted to check in on me. He apologized for what happened. He also told me that my new boss lost the contract and had to fork out the money to repaint the whole wall blank again, so that another muralist can take over. The company is floundering now. The new boss can't find anyone to replace us, and he probably never will. What he didn't realize was that finding even one good muralist willing to work for a company is difficult, let alone a team. Most muralists are more than happy to self-employ. More importantly, not many people have the skills and patience as well as physical abilities to create beautiful, large-scale artworks from great heights. I give it another few months before the company completely shuts down. My coworkers and I still keep in touch. They got a few mural projects in the works from clients that they knew during their time with the company. I help out now and then. But I'm still pretty burnt from the experience. So I think I'll look for other jobs. For now. 3. So I used to be a bar manager. Which is an understatement. I used to do literally everything in that place. But that's another story. And I had a team of 6 people. Waiters, cooks, and clean staff. So I used to deal with the everyday life of the bar, and here in Brazil, it is obligatory for the company to provide drinkable, filtered water to employees. So we had 2 water filters in the bar, one on the counter, and one in the kitchen. Water filters must change filters every 3 months to continue to filter, and ours had a little red button that would light when change was needed. The first time the red light turned on, I did what I assumed was the most logical thing to do. Went to a nearby store and bought the filter. I paid around 25 USD, converting, changed the filter, and went on with the daily routine. End of the week comes and I go to the office to close the week. Basically, I go there and give them the cash that we earned, and they pay me whatever it is I had to buy for the bar routine. I gave them the filter receipt. The guy asks me, "Did you have authorization to buy this filter?" And I said, well, no, we needed the filter and I bought. And he responded that he needed to talk to the boss to see if it was okay. A week goes by and my boss calls me asking for a meeting that afternoon, which was unusual since they usually scheduled in advance. I go to the meeting and listen for half an hour how it is completely unacceptable for me to make a big purchase without authorization, and that the company had a purchasing department that made these kind of purchases, and that every big purchase I make I need to send them an email and they will take care of for me. They also said that the same filter was $16 online and that I was wasting company money. So I apologize and say it won't happen again. Around a month goes by, and the other filter in the kitchen also needed filter replacement. So I do as I've been told and send the purchasing team an email. A week goes by, no response. The other Monday, I receive an email asking for photos. The first email has the exact model written of the filter. I respond promptly with photos of the filter. 1 month goes by and no filter for the kitchen. I tell the kitchen staff if they need water, they can ask me and I'll fill a jar with fresh water from the other filter. One of the days I go to the office and they ask me about the filter and I tell them that it hasn't arrived yet. Boss was there and gets furious, calls purchasing team and makes them buy the filter online that instant. Another month goes by and the filter hasn't arrived. The other filter also needed replacement again. So I start telling the staff to get bottled water and to write everyone down so I can count stock later. Around 30 bottles goes in a week. I buy a lot of bottled water. The team asks me if we are getting more demand for bottles of water in the bar. I tell them no. The filters that were purchased online arrive. They don't fit. I tell the management team, they ask me to leave the filters at the office because they will change with the correct ones. I do so the same day, staff still drinking bottled water. 3 months pass by, the filters are still seen on the office when I finally leave that company for good. One of my old employees and friend still works there. He told me that they're still drinking bottled water, and the new manager doesn't even know there are filters to be used. 4. For backstory, I was renting a whole house with my friends. Our first landlord was the sweetest guy who would come fix anything that was broken himself. He would also not fuck with us for rent and kept things pretty clear with us. Sometime in the beginning of 2020, he sold this place to his brother-in-law, Sleazy. Unlike our previous landlord, Sleazy was a middle-aged guy who was stingy with everything. He expected rent on the first day of every month but refused to fix anything that went wrong in the house. We paid to fix a lot of stuff right out of our own pockets, even though we were all students or just making minimum wage. Eventually, the housing prices went crazy, and Sleazy realized that the rent we were paying was way less than what this house was worth. In my state, due to rent control, it is illegal to raise your rent beyond a certain percentage. But if you're signing a new lease, then you can obviously raise your rent however much you wish. Breaking a lease with a tenant is also a big no-no, and has severe repercussions. There are only a few legal ways to evict a tenant, and one of those ways is if you, as a landlord, want to come and make the property your primary residence. This is the option Sleazy picked and decided to serve us with legal papers. I was already in the process of moving out at this point because I'd had enough, but I felt sad for the people already living there. We stopped taking care of property once we got served and asked to evict in 60 days. We let the yard overgrow and refused to fix anything broken, as we'd had enough. I left a few days later, but this is what happened. The overgrown yard was a big problem, and the city hit Sleazy with fines for not mowing. He tried to get us to pay, but we'd already left. He then decided to hold hostage any mail he received for us, until I threatened to report him to the feds, because withholding mail is literally classified as mail theft, which is a federal crime here. He also had to end up paying the nominal fine. After all of us moved out, he started living in the basement and rented out the upper floor to a bunch of kids I know from university. Here's the kicker. Remember I said we fixed everything? That includes the air conditioner and the thermostat. We fixed it because we paid out of our own pockets. I have the thermostat registered to me instead of it being registered to him. I know this might not be legal, but I can control the thermostat from my phone from anywhere, as it has been registered to me. Although, just to mention, the thermostat can also be controlled through the device on the wall. It doesn't need an account. All you need to do to erase my account is to reset the thermostat, and that is just a simple button on the back. For the past 2 years, I have been heating the house in summers and cooling it in winters. Not so much so that it could cause any mental or physical anguish, just enough that they feel someone might have come changed it. I have lived in the basement and know how extreme the temperatures are downstairs compared to upstairs, so I was able to have a lot of fun harassing Sleazy. The change is enough to bother those in the basement, but not those upstairs, so I'm sure Sleazy has been fuming these past few years about people toggling the thermostat. From what I hear about Sleazy, he's still the same cheapskate and refuses to fix anything, which is also why he never decides to reset the thermostat. Someday, Sleazy will realize that he needs to reset the thermostat and kick my account off. But until then, I will continue to set the temperature so it is hotter in summers for him and colder in winters for him. Sorry, not sorry, Sleazy. 5. Over the last few years, especially once COVID hit, there has been a massive influx of families gathering in front of grocery stores to play music on various different instruments, while holding a sign claiming they were homeless. Problem was that it was pretty obvious to anyone who paid attention to those who play music instruments that they were faking it. They would use a large outdoor amplified speaker, pair their phone via Bluetooth, and pretend to play the lead instrument in that song. One day, they were playing in front of the store where I worked on our property. I made a note to approach them mid-song and catch them in the act, and it worked. As I was telling the man of the family that he couldn't be there, he screwed up and lifted the bow off his violin while the song was still playing. He ended up moving to another part of the parking lot off the property, but still close enough to lure our customers in. I knew I had to do something, knowing they made a very large amount of money from people in my area, which is reasonably upscale. On one of my breaks, I noticed that they were starting to pack up, but the huge speaker was still out. I pulled out my phone and attempted to pair with the speaker. I really didn't think it would work, but sure enough, when I tried, I heard a loud beep from it, confirming that my phone paired with it. I proceeded to play a loud audio clip that said the following. Thank you for your support. Just as a disclaimer, we want to let you know that we aren't actually playing instruments. I have my phone paired with a speaker in an attempt to make it look like I am playing music. This clip repeated almost 4 times before they got it to stop. They left in a hurry, and we never saw them again. My local area talked about it a lot after this happened. Frick anyone that makes money from people in dishonest ways. Now, before we go, I'd like to clarify a few things. I was one of the managers of the grocery store this happened at. We only had control of the immediate area in front of the store, and not the parking lot, as it was not our property. I have the utmost sympathy for people who are homeless and or struggling, and I would never judge someone who is clearly having a tough time. I do not believe that this family was homeless. They drove a family van every day to do this in front of my store. They wore nice, clean clothes daily, and never wore the same thing twice. Properly groomed and cologne perfume. They had a kid with them between 5 and 9 years old who never seemed to be in school when he could have been. He was often the one controlling the playlist on the phone. They had been doing this since before I worked there, according to my coworkers. I started at that store in 2018. When COVID hit, they showed up more often. and changed their sign to state that the husband had lost his job. This family was large. It was always the same guy with a violin, bass guitar, and accordion. When they were using the accordion, they never used the bellows, which made what they were doing obvious. They did eventually stop using it altogether. There were just too many red flags to me that told me they weren't homeless or struggling, and they were just leeching off the local community. If you have any other questions, ask and I will answer. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 143. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before we go on, if you could please like, subscribe, and we'll get to the comment part in a little while. Okay, let's see. We have a birthday shout-out today. I think today is the 29th, isn't it? Yes, we do. We have a birthday shout-out. And today's birthday shout-out goes to Kieran. Okay, they don't say how old they are, but they're currently on an international trip to Ireland from Canada. So Kieran's spending the birthday in Ireland. Well, I hope you're having a lovely time there. In my experience, the Irish people are very nice, so I hope you'll be made very welcome, unless you piss them off. Okay, now we're going to have a little bit of a sing-song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kieran. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty. Well, as you're very lucky your birthday falls on a Sunday, as is the rules of the channel, you're allowed to celebrate for a whole week. But as soon as it passes 11:59 next Saturday, you have to stop celebrating until next year. Them's the rules. I don't make them up. Except I made those ones up. Alright, let's see. Yes, we do. We'll have a question of the day, and that'll take care of the comment part I mentioned earlier. Okay, so let's see. Hellfreezer's question of the day. You know, I really should keep a note of the questions I've asked. I'm starting to forget. Was Captain Janeway right to separate Tuvix? Sorry, that's a stupid question. The answer is, of course, yes, forever and always, with no debates. Okay, so let's see. The real question of the day. Given the choice between two special abilities, would you like human beings to be able to breathe underwater without the need for equipment, or be able to fly through the air? Obviously, accounting for wearing warm clothes because it can be cold up there. Personally, I'd rather be able to fly because it would get me places a lot quicker, albeit with messy hair. Well, what little hair I've got left. Let me know what you think. Leave your answer in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.